Good evening, welcome, and thank you for joining us. This is Farm Drive, and my name is Yoshe Mpopwa. Na kama kawaida, I hope you're doing fine. You have, gone through the day, you have gone to the market, and now you're tuning to Farm Drive as we go back home with our profits. And I hope you have enjoyed the market day, you've enjoyed the weather, and you've enjoyed, walking around the country and around the market. And thank you for joining us. This is Farmers Media, where we connect, learn, and we grow together. Now, this is Wednesday, is TBT, and we're just one day or a few hours as we get to Friday. And I hope you have met every desire and every achievement you wanted to make throughout the week. You have met. And as we tell the week goodbye, some of us start telling the week goodbye as early as now. I hope you're ready for the weekend, you're ready to learn a lot, and you're ready even for the coming week. Okay? So the end of something is the beginning of the other. Remember to follow us on any of our social media handles. That is Farmers Media, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and our Instagram page. And this is where you get all the content that you require as a farmer. We give you a platform where you can ask questions, meet the experts that probably you'll never meet at your home area. And we make sure you're enlightened about everything that is going on in the country and in Africa at large, especially matters involving farming. And as usual, this is Farm Drive, where we get good content, where we educate ourselves, where we have knowledge at our fingertips, and where we get to have many insights. Now, beginning us off is the whole issue of devolution conference that was happening in Uasin Gishu County, Eldoret Town. And many unfolding things are happening over there, and I think as a country we are headed on the right track as far as matters that concerns us, that is farmers, are concerned. That's my view, that's my personal view as I look at the speeches that were given over there, the insights that the leaders have, and the vision that some of these leaders have, especially as far as devolution is concerned. This is 10 years. We are 10 years after the inauguration of the new constitution, and the new government actually came in. It's 13 years after the new constitution, but 10 years after the new government came in. That is devolution, the two levels of government. And a host of challenges have been there, but I think we have successes that we can, highlight and say about them. And in any of our platform that you're able to connect us with, what do you think about the 10 years that devolution has been there? Beginning us off is the speech from the president, and he highlighted much about corruption. And these were his words, and he said, "We do not want to devolve the whole issue of corruption. I mean, in counties is where we have seen a host of corruption. We thought that corruption was in the national government, where we were having leaders probably we never connected with. And in quotes, the whole issue of devolution and two levels of government was, the main aim was to give the wananchi a platform where they feel they own the government, because you see there are smaller regional governments where you feel you're in control of what is happening in your country. But we have brought those vices back. Most of the times you hear of contracts that are given, the back door, the whole issue of corruption and county assembly. I don't know if we have achieved the exact fruits that devolution needed to achieve. But again, as I say, we are on the right track, and we have achieved something better that we can boast of and speak of. And that's my personal view, and I think we are headed in the right direction. In any of our social media handles today, what is your view on the 10 years that devolution has been there? What is your view on the whole issue of your governor? Do you feel like we are meeting the right targets that we wanted when we brought in the new constitution, or have we missed the target? The whole issue of the county assemblies and more salaries and more bribes here and there, and impeachments here and there. The governor is not in terms with the MCAs, and the whole issue of devolution and where the county governments come in as far as agriculture is concerned. Do you feel like your county has supported agriculture as it should be? There are new company and new industries that have been set up courtesy of the county governments. Are we reaping the benefits of what we wanted and what we wanted to achieve with devolution. I welcome you once again. This is Farm Drive, and give me a comment. Let me know what is your view and what do you think about it. Now, to start us off today, we are looking at the whole issue of supply chain and rail transport. Supply chain and rail transport. So most of the times you get to these companies and everyone who wants to get employed in any government entity, government parastatal, wants to be employed in the whole supply chain department. That is the so-called procurement department that are kind of sisters and brothers, they're twins. And most of the times probably don't understand what supply chain means, and we take lightly the whole issue of rail transport. And then to bring it home, when was the last time you ever thought of traveling through rail? When was the last time you ever thought like, yo, today nataka tu I go back home or I go to Shago using rail transport? Rarely do we think about it. When was the last time we ever even thought of transporting and sending our goods to the market through rail transport? Most of the times we've been used to roads, we've been used to water, depending on where you are, freight. So there are a host of many other ways we can use to transport and get to the market. But railway, some of us think it's so rigid. We think it's so slow. We think it has been passed by time. So many a times we ignore the whole issue of rail transport. But let's look at a brief history of rail transport in Kenya and in East Africa. Now, in the colonial era, when the colonizer was here, that was the first time we ever saw rail on land, and especially in Africa. And that was so early in the 19th century, and that definitely was all about getting mineral resources, getting to the rural areas, and getting farm produce. And that was one of the main reasons why rail was instituted in East Africa and in Kenya specifically. And that was all about connecting the interior parts of East Africa, the interior parts of Kenya, to the coast of Kenya, because there is where we had access to the international markets. From the waters, we could access India, people could access any other nation we thought of. So there was a need to have and to lay rail transport, because I think at that time it was more you could rely on it than any other model of transport, because you think of airports, they were not there then. It was kind of hard. The roads were impassable, the weather conditions and the rest. So the whole issue of setting up a railway is an expensive ordeal. I think we have seen it even in our countries. The whole projects that we set, the SGR, that's the standard gauge rail line, cannot be compared to any other road network. None. The billions we have used is a lot. So that was back in the colonial era. But over time, when Kenya gained independence and most of the African nations gained independence, we have seen a decline in that. The railway transport was abandoned. It became shattered. And after 1963, when we gained independence as a nation, the railway industry was managed by the Kenya Railway Corporation. So that came in hand, and there were many trains that were going all over from Mombasa to Nanyuki to Kisumu, and at least rail transport was okay then. Then after that one, after independence, definitely everything that was managed by, most of the things that were managed by the colonial master, most of them became useless. Most of the Africans were not able to manage them, and that is where rail transport went ablaze. So when we look at it, the whole issue of connecting Nyanza to Nairobi, then Nairobi to Nanyuki, then Nairobi all the way to coast, was because we wanted to get our resources to these different countries, regions. Sorry. So I remember most of the times people used to line at the train station. They were loaded with all manner of agricultural produce, all manner. Think of it. And I think it's important to know that rail transport is one way that we can transport and interconnect agricultural areas and centers. I think that is the biggest and the main benefit that comes with rail transport, and agriculture is a main beneficiary in this whole thing. So the whole rail transport thing was distributing fertilizer, seeds, and on the opposite direction, it was transporting maize and wheat and all the agricultural produce. So over the years, there has been challenges with the whole issue of rail transport, a lot. When we look at the history of rail transport in Kenya, a lot. There is a whole issue of embezzlement, from funds to the equipment to everything that is used in the rail industry. And we are able to interconnect regions through roads. We have tarmac roads, we have murram roads that are well done. So guys always think, why should I go with rail? Why should I go with rail? So there is that whole issue. I remember when SGR came, there was a big outcry of those people who used to operate with the trucks, and it seemed like the railway industry will take out the transportation of these huge cargoes from coast all the way to Nairobi, Naivasha, Nakuru, all the way to Kisumu, and that became a big challenge. Then there is also the issue of cost. Setting up a railway is not easy. As I said, we look at our current place where we are as far as SGR is concerned. You cannot compare the amount we used in SGR to any road network in this country. None. So the whole issue of setting up a railway has been so costly, so costly. So we thank God because of SGR has come on board, and we are doing well. We are doing well as a country and as a region as we continue to interconnect all these markets. We're also looking at modernization. Modernization of all things, because I think when you compare the costs of transporting through rail and any other model of transportation, I think railway is much cheaper. Okay, much cheaper, and that is as far as there is a railway connection where you're moving and where you are going. So when we are talking about the whole issue of supply chain simply means it is a whole cycle of the agricultural process. We are beginning to the production stage. So what part does rail transport play as far as supply chain from production? You, the farmer who is producing these goods, all the way to the consumer. Now, from the consumer, we go back to the farmer who is producing this produce. That simply means one way we are going with the produce, the other way we are coming back with seeds and fertilizers. We are looking, and if you're keen enough, you always see that there was an effort that was so intentional to set the NCPBs, that is National Cereals and Produce Ports, in all the places, and most of the places I've gone, I've seen that all these warehouses owned by NCPB who are so close to the railway, very close to the railway. Because the main intention was, one, to empower the African farmer. That as a farmer, you get your fertilizer so easily. If you look, any place NCPB has been set, it was a few meters to where there is connection of the rail transport. And I think I've seen it back in my hometown and in my home country. NCPB was so close to the whole of railway transport. So we are talking about, as a farmer, taking your goods, taking your produce through rail, then the other way around, you're getting your fertilizer and your seed. So when you speak about that, we're speaking about production. You producing as a farmer, anything you need for production. Can we rely on rail transport for you to get your goods, to get your fertilizer, to get your seeds? There is a whole issue of processing. When you get your produce, whether it's tea, whether it's coffee, whether it's cashew nuts, whether it's anything that needs production, we need to add something to this produce. So we are looking at the whole issue of processes. And when you look at big companies, when they are connecting one main section to the other, and they're dealing with production, they mainly use rail transport. So they are connecting the portion mill to the dryer, from the dryer to the warehouse. There is a connection of railway. There is a connection of railway. So the whole process of receiving the produce, you add anything, whether it's anything you need to add, whether you need to package it, whether you need to brand it, you're adding any additives, anything you're doing that is processing. Then there is a whole issue of distribution. So we are done with the production, we are done with processing it, we are done with adding value, adding more value to this produce, packaging it, and now we want to distribute it. Now we are distributing it to wholesalers, if not wholesalers, then retailers. So what is the role of railway in the whole process of distribution? From distribution, then we have consumption. That after distributing to the main channels, consumers can get it at a cheaper price. So we are looking at rail transport, the advantages that it has as far as costs, profits to the farmer is concerned, and also costs to the consumer. So it is important for us to understand that rail transport has its own advantages, and I think this is one of the reasons why modern governments and modern nations are also investing in rail transport, and not just in produce, even in transportation. As an individual, as a farmer, how do you connect from one area to the other? So we are looking at railway transport and trains that travel in faster speeds, in slow speed, that are set to transport perishable goods, that are set to transport bulky ones. So it is something we need to look at it in every and all different angles. So when you're looking at this, we are looking at are we able to minimize our losses and maximize our profits? So we are looking at a way where we can minimize delays. We want to reduce spoilage. We want to reduce we want to reduce the losses. We want also to maintain the quality. We have always said in Farm Friends, we want to run our farming, our farmlands as an enterprise. We are looking at profits. We are looking at minimizing losses. We are looking at building an empire that we're able to pass it and to pass the baton to the next generation. So we are looking at something we can invest, something that is long term, okay? Something that is there for a long time. I know, and I look at rail transport that it is costly to install, but I think it's a little bit cheaper to manage, because I think the only time I saw major maintenance being done to the rail that was set by during the colonial era is when we were revamping the whole thing from Nairobi all the way to Kisumu. That is when we wanted to connect SGR to the older one. So that was the first time I ever saw a robust kind of maintenance on this railway. So we are looking at a place where we are able to reduce the cost of transporting. We want to reduce the cost at the time delivery. We want to reduce the spoilage. We want to maintain the quality of this produce. So that is the main aim of farming. That is the main aim. And I think if you have listened to some of these wise ones that have been brought up from the Devolution Conference, the government is so intentional. And I hope it remains an agenda by the government. I hope it remains an agenda by the government that being intentional in empowering agriculture. That simply means that farmers are able to get their fertilizer on time. They are able to get their seeds on time. Their produce is purchased on time. So we are able to interconnect warehouses. We are able to interconnect regions. I mean, there are many towns that grew as a result of railway. The railway, the colonial one. Nanyuki grew as a result of that. Nakuru was partly influenced by that whole issue. Even on the standard gauge, most of us never knew of Syokimau, and right now we know about Syokimau. So rail transport has its own vast of advantages. Most of the times we have we don't use it. So we are looking at the whole issue of food production and distribution, where we are able to produce food, we are able to produce our produce, and we are able to distribute it on time. So distribution comes with the whole issue of you're getting it on time, you are able to save on in terms of transport, and you're able to maintain the quality of this produce. That simply means we're able to meet the demand on time. So we are looking at rail transport in a manner that are we able to distribute our farm produce as a farm? Am I able to connect my home area to a farthest area in terms of distribution of some of these things? We are looking at the whole issue of economic impact that is brought by rail transport in supply chain management. From I remember some time back, I think at the start of this month, the president was giving a speech on the state of agriculture and the intention of the government and the plans, the procedures that they are taking to ensure that they empower the farmer. And one of the guiding ones he said is that 70% of the employed individuals in this country, 70% are employed by the agricultural sector. 70%. I don't know if you get the impact of it. It simply means if we are 1,000 people in a room and we are all employed, that simply means 700 of them are employed by the agricultural sector. I mean, how can we prove how important that agriculture is to a nation? Tunaweza jitilia mkazo. How can we say it better? That in 1 million people, all employed, we're looking at 700,000 people employed by the agricultural sector. Now, this is what we are saying about the distribution chain of agriculture from the producer to the consumer. So we are looking at the economical impact. I mean, from the producer, you the farmer who is producing this so-called product, to the consumer. There are vast of range of companies and individuals who are employed, companies and industries that have been set up because of agricultural produce. So that is how important agriculture is to a nation. So we are looking at the growth of the gross domestic product. We are looking at the issue of employment and unemployment. So if we really want to come up with all these issues and sideline them and deal with the issue of employment, I think we invest in agriculture. Okay, we invest in agriculture and we will see the fruits of employment and the fruits of what we are putting in. I bring to your attention there is the whole conversation about the sugar industry, and a bigger part of Luhyaland, a bigger part of Western Kenya grew as a result of the pan paper mill and as a result of the sugar mills. But over time, with the collapse of the sugar mills, we can imagine the number of jobs we have lost. And it simply means we are losing employment if we are not keen on agriculture. So we are dealing with the whole issue of economical impact in terms of agriculture, rail transport, and the whole issue of supply chain. We are looking at the issue of access to markets. We can trust. I believe we can entrust railway to help us access markets, because number one, we are accessing markets in bulk. Okay, we are accessing markets in bulk, so we are able to carry tons and tons of produce and take them to the market. So it is easy to access the market. It is easy to access these storage facilities and the whole issue of warehouses. We are looking at the issue of innovation and technological advancement. With the whole issue of rail transport, we have seen big and massive advancements in terms of technology. Big ones. You look at the developed countries, you look at their rail transport, it is massive. it is something we are looking forward to when we will get there. When we're able to go with high speeds, when we're able to interconnect regions and markets using railway transport. But I think partly when we have not thought about rail transport in this country and better part of African nations is because we look at rail transport as something slow. Like if it will before you get to the market, it is very. But when you look at some of the technological advancements that are coming in place and are playing a crucial role in terms of connecting, towns and connecting markets, it's an encouraging thing. And I think, as I said, I'm really waiting to see the technological advancements that will be there in the next 20 or so years. Look where we are right now. You get to social media, you look at some of these farming channels, some of these technological channels, vast and powerful technology that is coming. So as farmers, we can set ourselves, we can place ourselves in the next 10 years that we can entrust rail transport to help us transport whatever is in bulk. And the government is taking the whole issue of rail transport in transporting farm inputs because it is one of the most reliable places. You go to any market, you find that any NCPB store and warehouse was set there, and it is so close to any rail transport. So when we're looking at this, we can ask ourselves, then what is the main role of railway transport in agricultural setup? What is the main role of the rail transport in agriculture? Now, when you're looking at agriculture from you, the farmer, from I, the farmer, all the way to the processor, all the way to the distributor, all the way to the consumer, what is the role of rail transport? One, we are able to access the manufacturer. Okay, we are able to get where the manufacturer is. We are able to get where these companies are. We are able to get to the market to the manufacturer in time. And the reason, I guess, the reason why the colonial era and when they came to colonize, they decided to set the railway, not the roads. Bigger part of it, they began. Of course, there were some few roads, but the might that the might and the finances and the resources they did on railway probably would have done it on road. But there was a considerable decision that they made to invest on the railway first before they invest on the road, or even before they invest on airports. So why would they invest in such an endeavor? Why not invest on roads? And I think for roads it will be very easy because you will interconnect many areas. And it is simply because one of the main idea of the railway that was set before by the colonial masters, it is because they wanted to transport raw materials. And naturally, any raw materials compared to the finished product, most of the times raw materials are heavier, they are bulkier. Okay? So when we want to connect with the manufacturer, rail transport can be a good avenue, one of the most important avenue and a big avenue for us to connect with the manufacturer. A very important one. Because raw materials are huge, are so heavy, and this is one of the model we can use in shipping whatever we are producing. You look at any areas, and most of the areas that grew as a result of timber, as a result of coffee and the rest, major parts of this country have been interconnected by rail transport. Truth be told, because we can entrust rail transport to carry tons and tons of milk. Then from the manufacturer to the distribution center, it becomes so easy. If you are able to access the manufacturer by rail, then it will be so easy for you to access the distribution center. You're able to access warehouses. You look at SGR. When SGR came into being and the whole concept of SGR came on board, people bought lands. People build warehouses close to the railway because we want to connect the producer to the manufacturer, from the manufacturer to the distributor. That is where the houses are. So we are able to connect to the distributor. We are able to maintain the quality of our produce. Okay, so we are able to maintain the quality of our produce, and it becomes much cheaper for us to deal with the whole issue of spoilage and delaying and all this stuff that causes the farmer to minimize their profits. We have the issue of distribution centers to retailers. So we have connected a distribution center. We want to go to the retailer. A host of towns have grown. Again, a host of towns have grown with the whole issue of even the modern rail SGR. A host of them. So we are connecting the distributor to the retailer, then from the retailer to the customers. So we will see that the whole issue of transportation is a whole bridge from the producer to the consumer, and in between there are very vast processes. Last time we were discussing about food labeling and certification. So we are looking at a whole process where you just harvested potatoes, but at the far end, this consumer is taking them as crisps, as fries, and it is a very engaging process that we can talk about. Okay, it is an engaging process that we can talk about because there are many individuals who are employed in between. So we can say that the whole process plays a very important role in the farming industry. So we are talking about input distribution. We are talking about production and harvesting. So we can entrust this whole process. You can farm as far as a different county and transport them. We are talking about handling whatever you have produced after harvest. Post-harvest practices. We are talking about storage and warehouse. We are talking about distribution and retail, market access, and consumer reach. So there is a host of issue that we can talk about. The whole issue of export. That was the main reason why railway came. It was all about export. It was all about getting to the interior parts of Africa, getting to the interior parts of East Africa, getting to the interior parts of this country, getting that produce and taking it for export. That was the main reason why railway came in, and it has played a very important role in this country. So we are looking at efficiency in transport. We are looking at expanded market. So with the whole issue of railway transport, we are so efficient in our transport. So that simply means we can schedule when we are getting the inputs. We can schedule when we are sending our produce. It's efficient. We are looking at new markets, export, and the rest. We are looking at the preservation. We are looking at a railway transport that we can entrust to preserve our produce as we go on. We are looking at diversification of crops. When we have new markets, we have new produce, we have new crops, we have new ways of farming. Okay, we are looking at development of some of these areas that are set up for agriculture. When we look at agriculture, we always think of rural areas. Rural areas depend on agriculture. You look at towns and regions that don't have any of the companies, any industries, but they are able to depend on agriculture. And they're able to feed, they're able to grow. So we are looking at a way where we can interconnect these towns, these regions, with rail transport, that they have new markets, that they have inputs on time. So we are looking at the growth of some of these parts. If that's not the case, then we want to interconnect them to the manufacturer, because most of these rural areas that depend on agriculture, rarely would you find them with industries around. Some of them don't have any industries around. So if we connect them, either by road, either by rail, either by air, or even by water, depending on where they are, we are able to give them access to new markets, diversification of crops, diversification of agricultural practices, so that we are able to empower them get to the next level. So, we would say that rail has played an important part of agriculture. I think one time when we were young, we went when we were almost with class 8, that is from the 844 system. There was a neighboring company that would give us an opportunity to just go visit the company and just learn what goes on around. I think it's part of CSR, community social responsibility, corporate social responsibility. Sorry. So they will give opportunities for schools around to just go around, see the kind of technology over there, the machines that are used over there, the working conditions, everything that goes on in this company. But I think most companies do that. So when we got there, I was shocked to actually realize that most of these small centers in the company, small industries, small segments in the industry, it was a sawmilling company. From where the logs are received to where they are, refined to wood, to where there is some value addition from the waste materials. There was an interconnection through rail. And I was so curious, and I asked them, so why do you have? For me, I never thought of interconnecting the smaller segments in the company, but for me it was like, why do you have railway around this whole thing? I mean, the railway should be outside the company, and the whole issue was the bulkiness of the logs. You're coming with a log that is worth, I think, if not a ton or half a ton, and you're looking at a machine, or you're looking at individuals who can carry this stuff and take it, to a different area, a different segment. So the whole issue of bulkiness comes in handy with railway, and sometimes it is not even we will call a railway. The one we know is made of iron and the rest, but it is something that is self-made. They just have two good pieces of wood, and they have a small machine that goes over the wood like a tree, and they're able to continue with their duties in a very, very special way. So we will say that railway is something that can be adopted, especially in transporting and especially connecting rural areas. Very, very, very important. So rail plays a host of important roles in agriculture, in the whole of agriculture. And part of it we have said is transporting raw materials. That was the main aim. There is a whole issue of logistics and supply chain. You supply from the farmer to the manufacturer, from the manufacturer to the distributor, from the distributor to all the warehouses, from the warehouses to the retailers. Then retailers get it to the consumer at a considerable price. We also have the issue of risk management. We can assess, especially areas that are interconnected by rail. You can assess the issue of risk management. You look at weather. Any other model of transport is affected by weather. But look at railway. What affects railway? I've never seen any day that railway transport. The weather is very bad. The weather is very, very bad. No, we are looking at a constant model of transport. Whether it rains, whether it's sunny, whether the weather does not favor our produce, we can still go. We are looking at the whole issue of port congestion. We are looking at piracy. We are looking at any challenge that comes up with transport. So, for me, I can entrust rail transport, and especially if your town, if your area, if your farm is close to rail transport, we can access these markets, even outside markets, when we're using rail transport. Rail transport is one of the most important and the one that you can rely on. When we speak about agriculture and trade, agriculture and railway, we are looking at some of the shipping methods that have been used. We are looking at the whole issue of container. We are looking at the whole issue of bulk shipping. There is a whole issue of dry cargo. So we can entrust it. So when you're looking at shipping, shipping is a whole issue of transporting. Transporting your produce, transporting your goods, your finished product. We are looking at you can transport it through air, you can do it through sea, you can use it through some containers that are mainly meant for transporting perishable goods. They are refrigerated. So you can transport flowers, you can transport any perishable goods, tomatoes, onions, you can transport avocados, you can transport potatoes. So there is a vast way we can do it. There is road, there is freight, intermodal shipping. This involves using multiple ones. So you realize that your area is not connected by rail. So you have to use road, then use rail afterwards. Bulk shipping is where, this is one of the greatest advantages that rail transport has. This is one of the greatest advantages that rail transport has. That we can transport things in bulk. We can have as many, we call them trailers, as possible, being transported on rail, as many as possible. So we are looking at a model of transport where we can transport hundreds, or if not hundreds and tens of tons of any produce we have. We can transport, this is what we call dry bulk cargo. We are looking at raw materials. Raw materials, it's easy. You're looking at coal, you're looking at fuel. Raw materials, you have liquid. So it's a model of transport that we can use to transport a host of items that one cannot or can never think about. So when we are looking at rail transport, we need to ask ourselves about the cost. We say, as a farmer, you're looking at a model of transport that can help you minimize wastage, so minimize losses, maximize profits, okay, and maintain the quality of your produce. In that, the way I left the farm, there is no avenue I'm leaving in between for my produce to lose quality. So we are looking at a way where we can minimize wastage, we can minimize losses, maximize profits, and maintain the quality of our produce. So we are asking ourselves about the issue of cost effectiveness. How is rail transport cost effective? How is it cost effective? Can we entrust rail transport to be cost effective to our farm? Okay? Can we? When we talk about bulk transport, when you're looking at road, when you're looking at freight transport, we are looking at cost. We are looking at being charged depending on the weight of what you're carrying at most times. And that is why we have many sales points that you go have your truck weigh bridges. We call them weigh bridges. Because we are looking at the weight. Can our roads be able to handle the weight? So when we're looking at the whole issue of cost, and especially if we're dealing with bulk goods, bulk produce, bulk raw materials, we are looking at such instances where we are able to transport bulk cargo at our own, we are able to transport it. We are able to maximize and have capacity, and that is what you call economies of scale, to reduce the cost that is per ton. So economies of scale is where we want to transport not just a few kgs, we want to transport as many kgs as possible. That simply means we are meeting as potato farmers. We have found a market in Kisumu, we have found a market in Uganda, so we are able to pull the economies of scales and we are able to reduce the cost charged per ton of the bulk cargo. Okay? So if in any other model of transport, that will not be possible. But when you're looking at rail transport, we're able to reduce the cost per ton of cargo. Because this is one of the main reasons that is the main reason why rail transport came in. We have the issue of energy efficient. When we transport and we're able to transport as many cargoes as possible, we're able to save on fuel, we're able to save on fuel consumption and labor. We're also looking at collaborative partnership of rail operators, the terminals themselves, and any other logistical provider. We are looking at the whole issue of maintenance. The cost of maintaining a railway cannot be compared to the cost of maintaining a road. Kuna kelele mingi tunapiga and we say, oh, barabara tumitengeneza juzi tumeisha. There are potholes all over there, and I will tell you the truth, as I said before, I have never seen any serious maintenance on rail apart from when rail was abandoned, and there was a huge campaign to have it back by the former regime. Okay, so we are looking at a maintenance. What we can foretell, we can predict when we will maintain. We'll probably have this maintenance. Okay, so we are looking at that. We are looking at efficiency. We are looking at maximizing the whole vessel of transport, in that we can use one locomotive to transport many tons, many and a vast of tons. We are looking at effectiveness. We are looking at there's what we call fuel hedging. We are trying to mitigate the impact of fuel price increase. Supply chain visibility. We are looking at the whole coordination. So we are able to interconnect from the farmer who produces to this person who is manufacturing, from manufacturing to the distributor. So we are able to see it clearly. We are moving from this place to the next place without any delay, without any loss or in the market. So there are many vast of importances where we can invest as a country in rail transport. From environmental factors to the farmer himself, that's personal factors, to the government, to the consumer, to the manufacturer, and it becomes so easy. We lower the whole issue of emissions, we have energy efficiency, we reduce air pollution, we have regenerative braking. And this will be seen in electric trains. We have long distance transport, rail transport can go as far as you can think. We have containerization, where we use containers to transport whatever we want. So that simply means we are also maintaining the quality. And when you look at the whole issue of containers, they began with railway, but nowadays we can see them on trucks on the road every day. We look at climate. We are able to mitigate climate, and we are never affected by climate. We are able to support the whole issue of what governments of the nation are looking for, is sustainable development. We are able to grow these areas. We are able to grow the rural areas. We are able to create employment in the beginning. We are able to, grow even the life of a farmer, reduce the prices of these commodities. And we are looking at government incentives. And I think this is one of the most important things. And especially if you want to revive the rail transport to what it was. I remember people used to travel from Nairobi to all the way to Kisumu using rail transport. But nowadays, rarely would you find someone using rail transport. And I think rail transport is only used around among bigger cities in Africa. Nairobi, Cairo, you find railway being used around, but not outside, connecting with other places. I want us to look at some of the challenges of rail transport. Um, well, every project, everything, as long as it's under the sun, it has its advantages and its disadvantages. And part of the advantages of using rail transport and connecting, where governments will invest in rail transport, that governments will invest in rail transport in their countries to empower agriculture. But part of the challenges and the solutions that are there is the whole issue of innovation and technology. As African nations, we are not yet there where we can say we will rely on rail transport wholly and wholesomely. So if we are not there, that simply means we have a step to go, partly because of the cost, partly because of the perception we have. So it becomes so hard for us to invest in such advanced technology where we have trains at higher speeds. Challenges will be there. We will not be able to adopt such technology because it requires a host of investment. Part of it is market demand and supply. So what happens to those towns that are not connected by rail transport? Are we going to be able to meet their demand? Are we going to be able to meet the whole fluctuating levels of demand? We have the issue of infrastructure and readiness. I don't think we are ever ready for such a project. Rarely would you find us ready. Because as we look some of the challenges that SGR had, that is the standard gauge railway, had in Kenya, we are mostly not ready for such, especially in terms of farms and these individuals who own these farms, that these railway will pass by surrendering the farms and giving the farms to the government compensating these individuals. It is a whole process. I think I've heard that until today there are individuals who have not been compensated. I don't know how true is that, but there are a host of readiness and things we need to put in place for us to be ready for it. We are looking at the whole issue of perishable goods. Can we transport perishable goods using rail? And if we need to transport the whole perishable goods, what do we need to do so that we avoid any potential delay in anything we do? So these are some of the challenges that rail transport has, but I would say the truth. Rail transport opened Africa in the colonial era. It opened Africa. That was before we even invested in roads and in any other thing we are doing. It's one of the main, the greatest projects that the colonialists brought to Africa. One of the main. And apart from SGR, I think we took so long, almost, if not more than 100 years. We took 100 more years to set a new railway in Kenya from that which had been set by the colonialists. 1 year. So we are looking at an infrastructural project that is heavily dependent on us, leaving any other project we are doing and investing in this, simply because we are looking at a project that requires much finances. In terms of setting it, in terms of acquiring those lands, especially for countries and lands that are privately owned. So we are looking at a host of disadvantages and advantages that we can check for us to invest in such an endeavor. So we can actually agree that rail plays an important role. And I know some of us are saying it's because of raw materials and bulkiness. But when it comes to perishable goods, we cannot entrust it. But we have the whole issue of what we are saying, containerization. We are looking at containers that are refrigerated. We are looking at containers that can carry. We are looking at a model of transport that can carry tens of containers at one instance. Okay, so we are looking at energy saving. We are looking at environmental conservation. We are looking at a model of transport that we can come and adopt even as a nation in order to connect the inner parts of this country. So labor availability in terms of training and how to set up this whole endeavor in terms of running it, so that we don't have to come again constantly maintain it, and how costly it is. It becomes in handy. Now, why should we invest in rail network? Why should we invest in rail network? We're going to take a short break. When we come back, we're going to look why should we invest in rail connectivity, as we look at some of the challenges that SGR has gone through, and those ones will actually tell us some of the challenges of rail transport and the disadvantages, and bring them so clear. So keep it tuned. This is a Farmer's Drive, and let's meet after this break.
To have healthy cows that produce well, you need to feed them with enough energy from fodder crops, proteins from supplements like dairy meal and legume plants such as Kaliandra, along with minerals, vitamins, and water. For a healthy cow weighing 380 kilograms, it will need to eat 1 bale of hay a day, which is the same as 20 kilograms of fresh fodder. If you are growing your own fodder, you'll need about 1 acre per year to feed 1 cow, 1 heifer, and a calf. Good fodder grasses include disease-resistant Napier grass, Bracharia, and panicum grasses. If you don't have enough land to feed your cows, then you'll need to buy extra fodder from other places. Remember to always have clean water available to your cows. If you want your cows to produce plenty of good milk, make sure they are always well fed.
Welcome back. This is Farm Drive, and I hope you're learning one or two stuff. And remember to follow us on any of our social media handles. That is Farmers Media at our Facebook. That's Facebook, at our Twitter and YouTube. Place any comment, ask any question, any of our agricultural experts, any agricultural question you want us to answer. Please place it there and let us know what is your view. I had asked, what is your view as far as devolution is concerned? Where are we? This is 10 years of devolution. Have we met the main targets of why we wanted devolution to be on board. I know partly we wanted devolution because of our political issues and political differences. We wanted communities to feel and ethnic groups to feel part and parcel of the leadership of the country. But have we achieved what we wanted in terms of having devolved units, in terms of agriculture, in terms of development? Have we met any of those standards that we wanted to have? So this is a conversation that we need to continue having, and I think we need to do a lot, but partly I would say, on my view, we are at a better place to enjoy the fruits of devolution. So give us your comment, let us know what is your thought on the same. So we are talking about railway transport, we are talking about interconnectivity of railway, we are talking about supply chain and rail transport. Where and how can we entrust supply chain? We have said supply chain is a whole concept of connecting the whole process and the whole cycle of agriculture. That is from the producer to the processor, that is the manufacturer, to the distributor, all the way to the consumer. So when we're talking about supply chain, in job adverts we always say supply chain management, but we are looking at a host of activities that happen from the farmer. When he or she is receiving the input, the seeds, the fertilizer, all the way to the harvesting. You have harvested, how do you access the manufacturer? How do you access the processing plants? How do you access these smallholder industries? How do we access them? So can we entrust rail transport in terms of getting to the farmer, then from the farmer to the producer, from the producer to the distributor, from the distributor to the market? We are saying part of the reason why railway was built in Africa, the first years, that is during the colonial era, that is the early 19th century, and some in the late 18th century. The reason was to transport and bring raw materials from the interior parts of Africa, the interior parts of this country, to the coastal areas. From the coastal areas, they got to transport these raw materials all the way to where they wanted them, all the way to the manufacturers' places. So that was the main reason why railway came on board. So can we continue trusting rail transport as far as the supply chain is concerned? So as a farmer, can you trust a railway for you to receive your inputs, for you to receive your seeds, for you to transport whatever you wanted? And we have seen there are a host of advantages that we can say about rail transport in terms of environment especially. We are able to use land efficiently because you cannot compare railway with land. We're able to save on fuel, save on energy. We're able to lower on emission. This is simply because we're able to carry host of tons using one model. Okay, we're able to carry many tons, if not tens, then hundreds of tons. And you cannot compare that to any other model of transport, whether road or air or even water. So we can look at railway in terms of an endeavor that many governments in Africa can invest in. Partly, I think the biggest advantage of railway is, of course, the initial cost to form it. The initial cost to form it is a big challenge. So as I said, we're going to look at some of the challenges that SGR, that is the standard gauge railway, has faced. And we are also going to look at the whole issue of integration of railway. So there are places and times we are not able to lay new railway channels. So can we interconnect the whole railway with other models of transport? Can we do it? So standard gauge railway line is not far off. I think most of us can recall when it began. And some of the challenges that have come up with standard gauge, I know we can relate. And I know some of us, we were in the midst of all that. Some of us were looking at it from afar. Some of us felt like it was so expensive. One of the common question that is asked as far as standard gauge railway line is concerned, or any other railway line is concerned, in its initial stages is its operational efficiency. So we are looking at, does it adhere to all the safety measures? The cost we invested to build this project, is this project going to repay itself? And I think that was the biggest question that was in the media, was on the front line, the gazettes, and that was one of the questions that politicians will joke around with. So that we're using almost 300 billion and something to lay down a railway, a structure, a railway, all the way from from Mombasa, then from Nairobi, then there was the second phase that was supposed to go to Kisumu. So we are looking at this railway. Will it be able to fund itself in terms of maintenance and in terms of giving us the cost that we used to lay down? So that is one of the most, and I think the greatest question. And that is a question on revenue generation. What amount of revenue generation can we get from standard gauge? Can we get from any railway, even the old and the old railway line? Can we get any revenue from it? Okay, so I think that was partly why the government issued order on what should be what should travel by rail. I think that was seen as a way of boosting the revenue generation of this project. So when you're asking a question about rail transport, it is all about the operation efficiency and the revenue generation. Can we get the amount of money we have used to pay to set it up? And I think that's not an honest question we will ask ourselves, because when we are building roads and when we are building new roads, we never ask ourselves what this road is going to give us. We are looking at the interconnectivity of this, interconnectivity of the areas. So we are building a road that is connecting Nairobi all the way to Nyandarua. We are looking at a road that is connecting Kenya all the way to Tanzania with a different route. But we never ask ourselves, what is this road going to give us? We are looking at the interconnection of towns. We are looking at getting modern ways of transport. We are looking at the growth of these interior parts. So if we have the same picture when we are talking about rail transport, I think it will come in handy that you can just set your goods on this locomotive and very fast, very efficient, all the way to Mombasa, all the way to Kisumu, and become so easy. Part of the reason, as I mentioned before, was on land acquisition. Now, it's important to know that in Kenya, land is owned individually. Rarely would you find communal land. I think it's only a few instances, and it depends where again. I know probably parts around Kitengela and the rest, they are communal land, but a big chunk, if it's not 98% of the lands in this country that are owned individually, it simply means everyone has a title deed. Land acquisition for the railway line to pass where it is today, it was a host of activities, because you had to compensate these individuals, they had to agree to leave the land, and there is a host of individuals. Now when I'm speaking about land acquisition, we need to look at it this way. I think I met a gentleman who was talking to me about some of the challenges that the government is facing and the people are facing, especially around where the Karemeno Dam is being built. And he was telling me the biggest challenge is some of these lands are inherited. They are family lands. They are ancestral lands. So that simply means you have the grave sites of your great-great-grandfather on these lands. So the government comes and tells you, we want this land because we want to build this and this project. and you need to make a choice of digging the graves and getting the remains of the bodies and bury them somewhere else, or even leave them there. So there are a host of many issues that surround the whole issue of land acquisition. Land acquisition simply means you have been in that land, but probably there was an issue with the title deed. Someone else faked a title deed. You will probably not receive money for your land. Someone else received the land, the money for the land. So it is a host of issues, especially on matters concerning land, especially here in Kenya. We're looking at the environmental impact, the potential degradation of the soil of the land itself. We're looking at many host of issues that came by because of SGR and bringing it. We're looking at the issue of cost and financing. I think this was one of the main reasons why people castigated the former regime, and people castigated the whole issue of debt and debt ceiling, because the whole project probably was financed through debt. So we are looking at instantly. That's why I began asking the question of revenue generation. Are we able to generate revenue to use and maintain this project, and also pay out whatever is debt? So when you look at it that way, you realize there are a host of many questions that are involved in terms of railway and setting up the railway. There are many others that I have not mentioned here, but we can say that there are many challenges that are come up with the SGR and the whole of the railway transport. There are some benefits. We have seen an improved connectivity of different areas. And I think part of Naivasha has grown because of the dry port, although there were also political issues surrounding the whole issue about transferring it back and then finishing it off. But we are waiting to see what happens. But we can all be in agreement that there are towns that have opened up as a reason to SGR. And as I said before, we ask ourselves a host of questions as far as railway systems are concerned. Why are we setting it up? Is it efficient? Can it generate revenue? We don't ask this question when we are setting roads. We don't. We always look at connecting these areas, connecting the interior areas to the urban areas, so that we're able to have produce coming from the interior or to the urban areas. So we are looking at increased connectivity. As I said, there are towns that grew as a result of railway. There are towns that have grown as a result of SGR. So we are looking at increased investments. We are looking at trade and commerce. We are looking at job creation. We are looking at trade has increased. We are looking at job creation. We are looking at more individuals who have been employed either directly or indirectly. That is construction, logistics, and any services that one may be doing over there. We are looking at interconnectivity, trade. And you need to understand that this project began as an interconnection between the East African countries. So we are looking at a place where you can sell your goods from that local market in probably, let's say, Maushe. Maushe is in Jorosa County and in Nakuru County. And you can get your goods from that interior area all the way to Kampala in Uganda. So we are looking at increased trade and new markets. We are looking at reduced congestion of some, and I think part of the reason why the government was giving directives of what should be transported using the standard gauge railway line is to reduce congestion from Mombasa all the way to Nairobi, of the trucks and the rest. So it becomes so it was also part of decongesting the road itself. It was part of decongesting the road itself. Look at the price of building, as a super highway all the way from Nairobi to Mombasa, with setting up a railway that will carry that function. It becomes so easy. We are looking at tourism and development. we are looking at transport and efficiency. How is SGR efficient to you as a consumer, to you as a producer, to you as a manufacturer? And I think one of the biggest and the host of the benefits that come with SGR and at an extension rail transport is regional connectivity. Okay, it's all about connecting different regions in Africa. It's all about connecting different countries in Africa. That I can board a train, travel from one country to the other. It's so easy. And I think we need to get our mind and revolutionize our mind to a place where we can have rail transport as fast, more than any other model of transport, whether air or road or even water. So I'm waiting to see such technologies. So there are vast of challenges and benefits that have accrued as a result of standard gauge railway line, and as far as a result of laying down railway line. So these are vast of challenges that we can face as a country, we can face as individuals when we are setting this transport facility. Now, can we interconnect railway transport with any other model of transport? Can we interconnect? So simply meaning we look at a main area, we look at this county, we interconnect this county to any other county using rail. Now, in that specific county, in that specific region, we are able to interconnect it using road or any other model of transport. We look at Kisumu, we connect Kisumu and Nairobi using railway. Then in the different parts of Kisumu and Nairobi, we connect those areas to the railway center using a different model of transport. That is what we call multimodal connectivity, where we have roads that connect to the railway, then the railway connects any other place. So this is part of reducing the whole cost of setting up a railway. It becomes so easy. It becomes so easy. So I think when you're talking about railway connectivity, it is a responsibility of the governments of the land and the governments of that time to partner with neighboring countries, partner with development partners, and set up railways. Okay, especially railway transport that is powered, it's electrical, so that it becomes so easy. There is what we call last mile connectivity. Last mile connectivity, we have had it, especially when it is mentioned in the SGR. It is where we are connecting two areas that are far off. There is a huge distance between them. We are connecting the ports. We are connecting these trading hubs. We are connecting them. There is a huge distance in between them. That is what we call last mile connectivity. And so the other was a conversation when we were connecting, when the government of Kenya was connecting Nairobi and Kisumu. That's I think, I don't know how many kilometers, must be over 300 kilometers. So we are connecting those two areas because they are business hubs. Yeah, they are urban areas, so we are connecting them. So when we connect them, then we can interconnect them with any other regions around with using roads and any other. So when we talk about this, we are talking about seeing a government that is connecting areas that are longer distant apart, then connect them using roads. That way it becomes so easy for us to understand the whole issue of railway transport. We are looking at cross-border rail links. Whatever is happening in SGR, we want to connect different countries using rail. It becomes more advantageous to us other than setting it up as a country. We are looking at a high-speed rail. So we are looking at modern technology, bringing whatever we see on media and the rest, high-speed rail. We want it to be brought here so that we want it to be on the ground. We want it to help the farmer so that we can embrace the whole issue of high-speed transport. There is what we call public-private partnership. That is what we call PPPs, and part of it was so stressed in the new constitution, where the government can partner with private individuals for that is what we call collaborative factor. You're collaborating so that you can bring an endeavor, a project to be brought here. Freight corridors is where we want to connect major ports. Okay, we want to connect major ports using railway so that from the major ports we can connect any other place. That is what we call freight corridors. This allows the movement of bulk commodities. And lastly, how do we do intermodal? Intermodal is where we want to connect railway and air, we want to connect railway and road, we want to connect road and water, so that we can have a seamless movement of goods. So that if you are on the far side of Uganda and you want to transport your goods to Mombasa, you can do it through Lake Victoria. From Lake Victoria, rail takes it up all the way to Mombasa. So this is what we are looking at. We are looking. That is what we call multimodal. Intermodal is where we establish terminals where rail and road are connected to the sea, and there is a transfer of different goods using different models. We are handling. We are looking at time. We are looking at saving time. Getting the quality of these goods. We have already spoken about the last mile connectivity. We are talking about efficient cargo movement. That is one of the reasons why we need to, mix all these ways and transport models. So that we can have, so that you don't get to the end of the railway line and you don't know what else to do. We have a road there. So we can connect roads to railway centers. From railway centers, we connect them to any other shipping center. May it be a port in terms of seaport or an airport. It becomes so easy. We also have the issue of time and cost saving. So why we need to embrace railway and any other model of transport is all about time. It's all about time. Well, there are places where you use rail transport, you save a lot of time compared to when you use road, and vice versa is true. We are looking at congestion and reducing congestion on our roads, reducing congestion on our ports. It becomes so easy when we bring all these models of transport. When you're transporting our cargo, it becomes so easy. We are looking at the issue of environmental benefits. When we use rail, it is more environmental friendly. That is what we see. We are looking at trade facilitation. The reason we want to use the different models of transport, interconnecting them, not using one, we want to interconnect them. And I think that is one of the most important ways the government did, just to build one railway from Mombasa all the way to Kisumu, so that we can interconnect any other regions that are so close to these towns. So that way we have seamless connectivity, we have trade facilitation, we have economic development. We say that the agricultural sector is one of the sectors that has employed many individuals. And from the statistics we had, it is 70% of all the employed people. So when you're talking about economical development, this is one of the important things that is brought. And I think this is one of the reasons why a government will involve in any project, as long as it has any economical development to the people. So we are looking at a connectivity where we are able to attract investors. So this investor knows, if I set up my company here, I'm able to access my raw materials anywhere in the country. Anywhere in the country. That way, we are able to bring investors in the country, and be able to grow our labor sector, our tourism sector, and our agricultural sector. We are looking at tourism, of course. When we interconnect our towns, our regions, then it is very easy for us to move around the country. I can say that there are a host of activities and advantages we can talk about as far as railway transport is concerned. And There are a host of them. And I think it's important for a government to, if not setting up a railway, then it is very important to set what we have said. We are using all the models to connect these countries and these areas together. When we talk about supply chain management, we are talking about maintaining the quality. So we are looking at a model of transport or models of transport that can be intertwined. That simply means if I'm using a container to transport my goods, to transport my produce, that simply means I can use rail transport. From rail transport, I can use road transport to get to the port. And if I'm going by sea, then I can use the same container to transport my goods. That way, we are interconnecting many parts. And we are doing port expansion, and we are doing rail connectivity, road connectivity, and it becomes so easy for us to connect with this. We said part of why we need to invest in rail transport and use it is because, and partly I think we have been so harsh on the whole rail transport. We have been so harsh on the rail transport because we ask a burst of serious questions. When will we get whatever we have invested in this? So right now I know there are many roads that are being constructed, a host of them that are being constructed around the country. And the main aim and the main focus we are looking at, are we able to interconnect these regions in this country? Are we able to interconnect the sub-counties and the counties? And I think partly some of the devolved functions, they are roads that have been devolved for the county governments to maintain. They are roads that have been devolved for the MC and the county assembly and the governor to maintain them. So we are looking at interconnectivity of these areas. We are looking at the interconnectivity of regions, not necessarily asking ourselves, what shall we get from this road? What shall we get from this interconnectivity? We are looking at this coffee farmer being able to access the market on time, this milk farmer being able to access the market on time. If we have the same mentality on our rail transport, I think we will support rail transport. And that comes with the discount facilities that the government and some of these government organizations that can bring. When we think about rail transport, we need to think about the seasonal consideration that one will put in place when you're thinking about the transport model you will think about. When the harvesting season, different crops have different harvesting seasons. So we need to look at which model of transport will serve the crop that I'm producing for such a season. So we need to look at logistics in the whole issue of harvesting. So when I harvest, where is my produce? Where is my market? How will I access my market? Okay? So is my market far away? Do I need to transport bulk goods? So that is one of the most important things. When you're looking at the harvest, you're also looking at the perishable goods. Which model of transport will be so efficient, so economical for me to transport what we call perishable goods? In that, I will still maintain the quality, I will minimize the spoilage, I will get the profits that I intended, the profits that I had projected. Okay? We are looking at infrastructural readiness. When you're harvesting, you need to ask yourself, which infrastructure is ready? Okay? Is good. I don't have to debate about it. I'll look at it. It is accessible. Okay? It is efficient. I can connect with the rural areas. And I think part of the reason why farmers have their produce rotting and not getting to the market is because of the whole issue of interconnectivity. Connecting the rural areas to the urban centers, connecting the rural areas to the markets. That is one of the reasons why most farmers have their goods perishing, in the farm. So when we are looking at the harvesting season, we need to look at which infrastructure is ready. Which infrastructure can I rely on it? Which infrastructure can facilitate the movement of my produce easily? So we are looking at devolved units. So interconnecting many of the rural areas to any of the centers. Okay? So I don't know how devolution is really helping in terms of interconnecting the rural areas that are around. We're looking about the supply chain coordination. So we are looking at a model of transport where a farmer to the consumer, there is a coordination that is put in place, so that it becomes so easy for you to trace where the manufacturer is, where the consumer is, where the farmer is. And we say at times, and especially as we go on, many a times in the past, farmers used to take their goods to the market. But as we continue on, we are finding that most of these producers, most of these so-called brokers, these guys who are purchasing our produce, they are coming for it in the farm. And among us, some of the things they think about is the road connectivity. They are looking at the connectivity to the farm, the connectivity to the area where they are getting it. So if it is not well connected, if the road system, if the rail system is not as good as it should be, that simply means they will buy your produce at a cheaper price, or they will not even buy it anyhow. They will not even come for the produce. They will try and weigh. If I need potatoes, I can go to Nyandarua, I can go to Molo. So which road connectivity allows me to access this market with ease? So that's one of the most and the important question we need to ask ourselves in terms of transporting of goods. There is the whole issue of weather and seasons viability. There are rainy seasons. Which model of transport will be so efficient for me to use during the rainy season? We need to, because it doesn't matter where you are or who you are, weather will always disrupt you. Whether it's sunny or it's windy or it's rainy, you will always be disrupted by the weather changes and the weather patterns. Even if you're not farming, if you're just transporting, you will still be affected. So we need to look at a model of transport that helps us, okay, to transport our goods from and ensures the whole cycle of supply chain is completed. We are looking at transport cost. There are a host of activities that will determine the transport cost that one will incur from getting to the farm, getting the produce, getting to the manufacturer, and getting to the processor, to the distributor, all the way to the consumer. There are a host of consideration we need to take in place. We need to look about the weather. We need to look about the road connectivity itself. We need to look at our current location, using the GPS to coordinate. How close are we to the available market? That will influence even the price you will sell. We have the issue of labor availability. That is loading of agricultural produce before and after transport. In case there is any issue about the transport, whatever you're using to transport, whether it's rail, whether it's a lorry, whether it's a motorbike, whatever you're using, can you get the labor that is needed for you to transport that? We are looking at the issue of market, demand, and seasonality. So there are times you find that during the rainy season, that's when there is a high demand of tomatoes, of potatoes, and that is the same time it is very hard for the farmer to access the market just because of the route. And again I ask, where are we as far as devolution is concerned? With 10 years of devolution, have we made the proper strides we expected to make, okay, in terms of road networks? Has the government has put a vast of measures as far as road connectivity is concerned? I think in the past 2 years we have seen a huge road connectivity over the country. So we need to ask ourselves, can we meet the demand of this produce? Okay? So you realize that there is a season, it's a rainy season. So much rain. We have a lot of farmers who have tomatoes in the farm. We have a lot of farmers who have cucumbers in the farm. We have a lot of farmers who have maize in the farm. But they cannot access the market simply because there is no connectivity to their areas. On the other side, the consumers there is a high demand of this commodity in the market, but no one is able to access the market. Okay, so we end up importing because whatever we had planted, we are not able to access the market, and it was perishable or it got spoiled. Okay, we are looking at the issue of regulatory and compliance. When you look at the transport sector, that is one of the places that the government is able to regulate anything. Be it on imports, be it on exports, it is one of the places where things and the government is able to regulate. We were talking about the issue of weighbridge, we are talking about the issue of permits, we are talking about the issue of food safety standards. All this huge stuff, most of them take place during the transportation time. Okay, so we are looking at a producer who is producing this produce, is taking it to the manufacturer. Manufacturer must produce it to the right standard so that by the time you are transporting, it has met the standard. You must have the permit of whatever you are transporting. And at times, before you get the permit, there must be a scrutiny of what you are producing. And again, the whole issue of GPS, the innovation and technology. There were times those who are transporting produce, whether it was fresh produce or it was processed, and it used to get lost on the way. Okay, I don't know how it will happen, but I think guys will open. They used to transport them using the containers. Guys will open the containers, take part of what they want, or even sometimes take all of it. After taking all of it, the business person goes at a loss. And over the time, we have had improvements in technology in terms of GPS. You are able to track where your goods are. Okay, you're able to tell where your goods are. If not that way, there is a way you have a GPS tracker. If that container is open, you can know remotely. So we are looking at innovation and technology that has come in place to help the African farmer produce, go through the whole of a supply chain until he gets his profit, until he maximizes on his income. So we are saying again, at FarmBright, we want to run our businesses, our farms as an enterprise. When we run them as an enterprise, we have the maximum profits that we want. So we are looking at expanding our market access using rail transport. We'll continue with this discussion next week, same day, same time on Wednesday, as we look at rail transport, some of the challenges. What advantage can we bring in place for us to enjoy the whole issue of rail transport? So as we meet next week, same time, we will be looking at some of the government policies that the government can put in place to ensure that there is a success story for this. What are some of the future trends and projects that we can look at as far as rail transport is concerned? And we can interact with some of these people who have been in this industry of rail transport, some of these government officials and some of these experts who manage the whole of the rail transport. It is my hope that you have learned something and we can at least be lenient on rail transport and take rail transport as our roots and as an infrastructure that we can be proud of. let us also take care of that infrastructure. We know it is so costly for the government of the people to set one as such. So we take care of it. We become patriotic citizens. We make sure we protect whatever is ours and whatever has been built using our resources. So it's my hope that you have learned well. Thank you for the feedback and anything you have sent to us today. Thank you for tuning in on Farm Drive. It has been an awesome time hosting this show, and I believe that we are learning one or two things, and we will embrace new technology, embrace new ways of farming, and start running our farms as an enterprise so that we can have something we can pass by to the next generation. And you know what? Increase our livelihood, maintain our quality of the produce we produce, and maximize on our profits, and we minimize on our losses. It has been an awesome time, hosting you here. My name is Yosha Bogwa. Catch us live every day. Tune in tomorrow for the breakfast show with our good presenter, Mary Oswero. So have a blessed evening, and let's meet tomorrow. Thank you.